Hey everybody, welcome back to Asmodeah City. This is Lord Gearth, the master of ceremonies for this here adventure that we're going to travel down on. Today we're going to be talking about the Foundry virtual tabletop, the server side this time. And if you're not familiar with what that is, this video may or may not be for you. This is kind of the in the weeds, dirty part of what us GMs do to prepare for you players that want to adventure well. And so you're going to see kind of the sausage being made. So you may or may not be interested in that. In the meantime, hit that subscribe button, smash that like button for us, help us grow this channel so that we can bring more of this awesome content to you. I literally have a stack of things that I need to get to record for you. So there's going to be a ton of stuff that's going to be coming out. So I'll be back in a moment and we're going to get started. So welcome back. And again, we are about to talk about Foundry virtual tabletops and how to create a scene. And I'm in the scene menu in my virtual tabletop right now. And I'm going to create a new one. This is the Dragon of Icespire Peak adventure that many of you may have started out on. It's a beginning adventure. And I'm kind of redoing it so that it looks cooler. And I did a video about custom token artwork and how to use it. I'll put a link to that up for you to see. There'll be a little card that'll pop up there so that you can go and see it. It's in our Foundry VTT Basics playlist so that you can see it there. So you'll be able to see it. And so what I'm going to do is bring in a new map, and there's a couple of really important things here. And I know that there's always this fight that we have trying to get our grids to line up for maps. It is so frustrating sometimes. And I'm going to try to help you kind of shortcut it a little bit so that it's maybe not quite so painful. So let's get started with creating a scene. Now I have a module, and I'll link to it in the description, that I've added here that adds folders to a lot of this stuff. So it makes it a little easier to organize things. And you'll see I have my quests in here for, this is Fanlin City, the main portion of Dragon of the Icespire Peak, if you haven't seen it. And I have some of these quests already built out, and they're awesome. The way this whole new way works to do this stuff. So I'm going to create a new scene, and I'm going to do it in this folder. So I'm going to left click on that little icon, and we're going to be doing Butterskull Ranch quest. So I'm going to leave it in the folder. You can select a different folder or no folder, and I only have the one folder right here. And I'll create my scene. So here we are. We're now in the configuration screen for this new scene. And you can see I don't have anything on here yet. There are two kind of important, mainly important things to know about this. That is, you can change the navigation name, which is what these names are at the top here for players, by naming it something different if you want. I'm not going to do that because Butterskull Ranch is exactly what I want. And you can set it so that the navigation, meaning on this right side and up here, it will only appear for them if this is not checked, or you can set it to be all players. I leave this alone because we can toggle it over here. And sometimes I don't want to show them all of them right away, and I don't necessarily want to keep them all hidden, so I'll toggle them over here. But we'll get to that at a different point. And so the background path, or the background image rather, is the path to your map. Now listen up, this is important. When you upload a map, and I've already done this, but I'm going to show you what I mean by this. If you upload a map and you go to click on this, and I was just kind of looking at tokens, we're going to come back to that in just a second, by the way. And I did a whole video on that, like I said, that will blow your mind. It's just very incredible. If you put this map that you're about to upload in this modules section here, it's going to throw a warning at you to tell you don't do that, because if you upgrade your VTT server, it may end up overwriting the files that you just uploaded there, which of course would be a disaster. So I created by simply being at this level. So I'm at the level I want, and I hit this little create directory button here, and I created one called My Maps. So if I click in that, these are the maps for Dragon and White Spire Peak, and I put in this map here, which is the player map, which you can get for Butterskull Ranch. So I'm just going to click that. Now you can click this upload if you want and choose the file and upload it, or I just happen to have it in here, so I'm just going to select it and say select file. So now here we have our map, and we know that it's not in the modules section. So it will warn you if you try to do that, and it didn't, so we're good. This foreground image can be kind of an overlay that's above your other objects in a scene. So if you want to put one in, you can. I don't really do that, so I'm just going to leave that blank. And this background color is that ugly gray color, and that's perfectly fine. I'm just going to leave it alone. Now, the next thing is the initial view of the map. Now, here's one thing that I've noticed. In the initial view, and since we have this in here, I'm going to save the changes, and it always pops up with this, changing scene dimensions, because if you've placed things already onto the map, like walls, custom token artwork, things like that, and then you change the dimensions of the map, those things will be somewhere else, and you may not even get them back, depending on the dimensions of the map you're doing. So let's go ahead and save that first, and here we are. Now we have our Butterskull Ranch map in general already here. And you can see when you zoom in on it, and I'm going to find a place that's really bad, you can see, well, these all are really bad. I tend to leave my grids all at 100 pixels. I found that if I try to do something else, I have to tinker with it too much to get it to line up. So I've decided that I'll just leave it at 100, and then I scale the map to fit the grid of 100 pixels. And let me show you what that means. All right, so let's go back in, and we'll right click here, go to configure. And when we go to the grid, you'll see that currently this is set for 100, which is fine. We're set for the square grid. You can make it gridless if you want to, but that's kind of weird. And you could do hexagonal, and you can do whatever you want. This little doohickey here is the grid configuration tool. And that's where we're going to do most of our fine tuning here. Now this will be the width and the height of the map itself that you've uploaded. It knows what you've uploaded, so it automatically puts it in there. I leave the distances at 5 feet per unit, which is each grid being 5 foot, each grid square being 5 foot. I don't need to do any coloring or any grid opacity or any of that. You can change this up if you want to, so that the grid is a little more visible. You can even change the color of those little squares if you want to, or I'm sorry, the lines if you want to. But we're not going to do that right now. What we're going to do is I'm going to save this change once again, and I'll show you why I'm going to do that in a second here. When I go into this basics, and I look at this initial view setting here, what it's asking for is, and let me move this out of the way, what it's asking for is, where do you want your characters to first appear on the map when they are brought into the map? Now, if you know the map of this particular adventure, the Sword Coast map, the main map of the entire area, you'll know that this Tribord Trail is where the players are going to enter the map from. They're going to be coming up from Phandalin, which is a little south of this Butterskull Ranch. And so you're going to want them to be starting here somewhere. That way, once they come in, they're not, you don't want them to pop into the center of the map. You want them to kind of show here. So you can scale in or out where you want them to be, and kind of center on where you want them to appear. Where you want them to appear. And then click this, and it will pick that position as the starting point. Now here's where there's kind of a glitch in, I don't know why, but there's a glitch in Foundry. When I click saving this, and then I go to mess with the grid itself and start changing the grid around and nudging it, this whole bottom, and it'll kind of like shrink away and it'll go away. So let me just show you how I get around that. I right click on here, I go to configure, and then I go to the grid. I click on the grid itself, the grid configuration tool. I'll move this out of the way so it's easier to see. Now we're in the grid configuration tool itself. If we click in here and we start moving things around or changing the scale, this will kind of go and it'll shrink everything up, and we'll have to save it and come back. So I can tell you that I usually start at about 2.35-ish here. I just know that these maps tend to be about that with these particular adventures that I'm using. And again, you'll notice, my map's gone away. So all I do is I click Save Changes. It always warns you, hey, you're changing dimensions, which means anything you placed on the map may be out of place if you change these dimensions. And you just say, okay, it's fine. And then boom, it comes back. That's the little glitch that is a gotcha. But you'll notice I've kind of saved along the way. And that's important because it will then stop from it kind of going way out of proportion where you're never going to get it back. So that's where we're going to start. Now, in this grid setup, you'll notice I put in that 2.35 and it did something weird. It added a bunch of numbers here. And if you zoom in, you'll notice these grid lines are not anywhere close to where they need to be, right? So what I will do is I will click on the map. I'm left clicking here on the map, and then I'm going to use my arrow keys and I'm going to nudge this map around. And I try not to go way far off to like the right or the left. I try to go to where it's the closest match. So these numbers down here don't get ridiculous. So I'm going to just get it as close as I can here. And this square looks pretty good, right? But when you scoot around and get out here, you're nowhere near being on target. That's what gets super frustrating about this in the maps. So here's what I do. I nudge this and nudge this and nudge this until I get it just about right. And I zoom out, I go to another different part of the map and I zoom in and I look and I see and I nudge and I play. But I'm going to cheat a little bit because I've already done this on this map. So I'm just going to paste in here the value that actually worked when I got done. And don't tell me how I arrived at this number. It's just the way that it worked out, right? Now, you're not going to have to enter all of these numbers manually. Some of this was automatically generated, but I can tell you once I hit that and then I start moving then I got to remember, click in there, and I start moving around and I get this as close as I can to where it looks pretty good. That's not dead on, but it's pretty close. And so now I'm going to zoom out, and you'll notice my offsets have been adjusted as I hit the arrow keys. I'm going to zoom out, and I'm going to go to way off to the side to some other place where you'd think it would be way off, and we are pretty darn close. I mean, I could, let's nudge it to the right just a hair, maybe one, maybe two. And then you can zoom out again, look at some other faraway place, and it's pretty close. I think I'll just maybe bring it up to just because, then I'll come back out. And let's go way over here and look, and we're pretty close. That's not dead accurate. And again, I'll just nudge it hair. Maybe I'm going to split the difference. I'm not going to go 3 or too much further off, but we're close. And now if I didn't mean to do that. When I zoom all the way out there and then I zoom back in here, you can see it's off just a little bit, but you know what? Your players aren't going to notice it, and it's pretty dang close. I think I will bring it over just one. Now, I'm not going to mess with it anymore. That's enough because this you could do this all day long, and you're going to have a string of numbers here that's just absolutely ridiculous. So let's not get nitpicky. Let's just leave it where it is. I'm going to hit Save Changes. Of course, it's going to pop up with this, hey, you're changing the scene dimensions again. And there we are. So now if I zoom out and I move to a different spot in the map and look at it, that's pretty dang close. I think we're all right. I'm not gonna sweat the small stuff here. All right. So now we've got our map grid set up pretty much correct. And I'm just going to go ahead and save that. Make sure that we're good to go. And now let's talk about walls. So there's several different types of walls. And of course, you're going to have to do this manually. I know that there is theoretically, there is a module out there that theoretically does the walls. I have never seen it work well. So I'm not going to even recommend it to you because it took more time for me to figure out how to get it to work right than it did for me to just do it myself. So I finally said, forget it. So now let's talk about walls. Here's the wall control option on your configuration screen here. And we'll click that. And you've got all these different types of walls and doors, right? So we're going to start with, these are our hidden walls or invisible walls here. The reason we're going to do those first is because we're doing a fence. And we don't want light to be affected by these walls. We just want them not to be able to walk through this fenced in area, right? So I'm going to select invisible walls, and I'm just going to do a small part of this. I'm not going to do the whole thing. So what I do is I hold down, ooh, that's not what I want. I hold down the control key and I start clicking and dragging, and I just kind of do, and then I let go and I click, I drag, and then I let go, I click, I drag, and then I let go and I click, and then I drag, and I get it pretty close. And then when you're done, you got to click again to stop drawing. So now I've gotten close. And if you look at it, it's not exactly right, but your players are not going to see this anyway. If you look at the player view, they don't see these walls. So it's not going to make any difference to them anyway. And light's going to pass through this, but it's not going to let them walk through it. And I can't show you that because even if I put a token on the map right now, the token I drag, because I'm the game master and I'm in the GM version of this, or view of this, it can walk through anything anyway. But now I'm going to continue on down here. Again, I want the wall selected, I want the invisible wall, and I'm going to hit the control button, hold the control button down, and I'm going to drag and hit, and then I'm going to click one more time to stop. And then I'm going to drag here. Now, this has happened to me before. For whatever reason, it's not letting me do anything right now, and I don't know what that is. Maybe it's going to be upgraded in the next version of Foundry, which is coming out actually fairly soon. So the way I get around that is I right-click, drag it, and move the map, and then it will let me start over again. Now, this can get really tedious when you're doing these walls that are not exactly straight. We're going to do some straight walls in just a second. But I'm going to stop down here. We'll just stop right there. This can get kind of tedious because as in a curve, you got to click and click and click and click and keep doing that. There is a module that allows you to build walls specifically, well, actually any kind of wall that's more round, and you can make oblong things kind of easier. And I'll leave a description of that. I think it's called Curvy walls. That's a module that you can add that makes that kind of creation stuff very, very cool. As a matter of fact, you know what? I'm going to turn it on. And you do that by going to Manage Modules. And yeah, here it is, DF Curvy Walls. It's already on. Yeah, that's weird. Okay, don't know why it's not showing me that. But I'm not going to worry about it right now. So that's how you get these walls that are kind of in a curved pattern. Now let's start talking about real walls, and let's talk about how it's so much easier when they're straight. Couple of things to notice in this part of the map. First of all, there are windows, right? So you would use those invisible walls to make your windows. Now, that's all fine and good, except you want to make sure that when you're starting a wall like this, you start pretty much on the grid line, right? And I'm going to hold the control button and drag, and I'm going to come here and I'm going to stop. And then I'm going to, I'll click again just to end that wall. Then I'm going to come over here to the invisible wall and make my window as an invisible wall. Okay? And then I want to stop, click again. And you want to make sure that you're starting and stopping right on one of these nodes. Because if you don't, you're going to have a break in both the light and you'll have a break in the wall itself. Now it's not letting me do it again. So I move the map, There we go. So now I can go straight, and I want to be pretty much right on that grid line. I'm going to let go, and then I'm going to, not of the control key, I'm going to let go of the mouse, and I'm going to click here, and then I'm going to click one more time to stop. Now we have a door. So now let's talk about doors. Now you have two different types of doors. You got a regular door and a secret door. You'll see that there it pops up, right? Draw a door, and you get secret doors. So this is not a secret door. As you can see, it's just a normal door. So I'm going to go in there. I want to do that. And I'm just going to pick a regular old door, and I'm going to start right at that node, and I'm going to drag, and then I'm going to stop right about the grid line. You'll see there the grid line is right about there. Okay, now what's important about that is if you don't do that, if you don't give your players kind of a full width of a grid space to get through, they'll open the door, but they won't be able to get through it. They'll keep hitting the edges of the walls. So this grid line that you see in here for a door now, and okay, so here, and I was going to mention this in a different part of this video, but now I'm going to mention it here because this is exactly what's happened to me before. Maps are sometimes designed poorly. So here they've got this door that's here, but it doesn't match up with the grid, which is silly. I don't know why they do that, but whoever designed the map, I guess, just didn't figure it out. So I'm just going to go ahead and click and drag this all the way down to there, just so I don't have any problem with my character walking through that door. That's kind of the whole point of that. So then I'm going to continue on with a regular wall. I'm back up here to drawing a regular wall. I'm going to hold that control key down and just drag and then drop it. I'm going to have to get close because the grid line is not exactly on par there. So I'm not going to draw this whole thing for you. I just wanted to give you an idea of what this does, both with regular walls, invisible walls that act like a window, because light will shine through here, right? So when your character's walking around outside, if they've got a light source, it'll shine through that window and see on the inside, and vice versa. If they're walking through the inside, their vision will shine through there. Here's the main door, or I'm sorry, this is a cellar door, my bad. And we'll talk about the cellars in just a second. All right, so here we've got just a basic wall. Now let's talk about some things like the stairwells. And that stairwell is not a good example of what I'm talking about. Where's the other one? There's another one here somewhere. Ah, there it is. That's the one I was thinking of. So here we are at the upper level. Now, if you really want to play true to the game, if you don't draw a wall here and your player walks across here into this area, technically they just fell down a flight of stairs. So you want to make sure that at least you don't do that to them initially. You got to be kind of fair with them. I mean, you could, I guess, let them walk through here and just go, well, I guess you didn't realize that there's no banister there, dude, and you just fell down the stairs and roll saving throws. So, you could do that, but for new players, it's kind of unfair. So make sure that you put walls around things like that. I think it's kind of unfair to take advantage of, especially some of the newer players doing that. So now let's talk about the cellar. And I told you I was going to talk about this. Now I've got my buddy Gendon, who you've all seen before. There he is. And he has dark vision at the moment. So if I click on him, he sees pretty much everything. Plus there are no walls here. Okay, so here I am back. I drew these walls in. It's a little faster when you're doing the straight lines, and I also figured out why my curvy walls wasn't working. I had forgotten to turn on the other half of the module, the dependency that it needed here. So now what I'm going to do is kind of show you something cool about that. When I go to pick this solid wall, and if I wanted to, for example, make an ellipse, I can click that, and now I can draw I can hold the shift down and I can draw a perfect circle. Actually, that's not a perfect circle. I think there we go. Now I can shift it. However, this will draw a circle for you really fast, which is a huge pain when you're doing that by hand. And you hit enter to make that go in. I'm going to get rid of it, but you get the picture. If you wanted to draw a circle, that's much, much faster to do when you're using curvy walls. Also, I used this tool here to create a rectangle so that I could do these little pillars that are in the center of the room. And what's cool about this is that once you've done that, you can come here, click on the select tool and select one of them, click on one node, start dragging it, and now you've got the ability to move that around. But also what you can do here, once you've selected it all, you hit Control C and then Control V, and now I pasted another exact duplicate of that wall there. I'm going to select that. You're going to make sure that you use that to select it. Start moving it and then hold the Shift key down. And I'm going to come down to this other one. Whoa, went a little too far. Hey, come on. You're going faster than one. I can come back here, and again, I can hold the Shift key down, and I can place it pretty much exactly where I want it to be. It may be a little off depending on the pixels of the map itself. However, you get the picture. It's a lot faster than having to draw them individually. That's for sure. So you can copy and paste them. I'm going to move this one up just a little bit. And let's hold the Shift key down. There we go. So now it's a little bit better. Although, still it's not, somebody's not going to be able to walk through that grid no matter what. Now I have my walls and I've got my buddy Gendon, and I'm going to move him. Click on that. I'm going to move him away, and you can see wherever he was able to see, and he's got dark vision, wherever he was able to see, you got this, kind of grayed out area. That's called the fog of war. And as he starts to discover more areas, he sees more and more stuff, and more of the map starts to be showing up as fog of war, but he's seen it, right? So I'm going to move him out of the way, and I'm going to hit this little light here, and then I'm going to hit this little cloud, and it's going to say reset the fog of war for all players. That's important, all players. Click on that. Now, if I go back up and I hit Gendon, he can't see these areas that he saw before, right? Now, what's important about that? I'm going to create something cool in this map, and I'm going to put a little card up that shows you the other video that I did about using custom token artwork in your maps to make them just come alive. Now, a lot of us like to do this true theater of the mind, where you actually just tell people, and I'm going to clear that. You would just tell your players, okay, so you walk down a staircase and it's a very dark room. So I'll do this in my DM voice. So you walk to the back of the building and you see an entrance, 2 cellar doors that are closed, not locked, but closed. And as you approach, you notice the hinges are a bit rusty and clearly will make some noise as you open them. So you carefully open the cellar doors and you see a dark stairway leading down into what appears to be a cellar. Okay, so then the character says, oh, all right, well, I'm going to turn on a torch. And I'm going to carefully look down into the cellar, and do I see anything? And I say, well, you can see the flickering of what appears to be maybe a lantern lit in the room, but that's all you can see at this point. All right, so that's great theater of the mind, right? It's cool. We've all heard something similar to that. However, now you're going to have them come down into the room, and they're not going to see a lantern on the wall. And then you're going to start describing things in the room like, oh, and off to the west wall, there's a chest. It looks like to be a very heavily fortified chest that has, solid iron straps. And it looks like it's not padlocked, but would not be easy to break into. So, okay, great. Now we've done this theater of the mind. But they're looking at a blank canvas. It's just nothing. So there's some really cool ways to fix this up. And this video about using the custom token artwork that we've done will show you how to do that. And I'm just going to give you a quick example of that. And also I'm going to show you how to add a light source if you haven't done that already. This will be something that will be easy and cool for you to see. So now you can see I've created these walls. So now we don't have to worry about light sources going through the walls, right? And at this moment, Gendon has not seen down into that stairwell. So he hasn't discovered that area yet, and he's got dark vision, so he would be able to see pretty much all the way into it. But we're going to change that in just a second. So let's talk about how tiles can help you. Now, tiles are things that are baked into the map, and with very few exceptions, the players can't interact with them. There are some modules that allow for you to set up tiles that, will trigger some, thing to happen if a player crosses that tile. But in general, tiles are things that are baked into the map. And so they'll be there, but the players can't really do anything with them. For example, these pillars are baked into the map. Unless I put a wall around them, they can walk over them, but in general, they can't interact with them. They can't do anything with them. Now, we're going to do something kind of cool. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select this place tile option, and I'm going to zoom in just a little bit here. And I'm going to create just a quarter grid size tile. So now that you have it placed, you can change this image, or you can even put a video if you want to use an animated tile, which are actually very cool. And what I'm going to do is I've got my kind of furniture pack in here that I got from this Studio Wild Fur. And I'll leave a link in the description to his stuff. It's actually really cool, and it's dirt cheap. It's just amazing that what he gives you for, such a small amount of money. Yeah, I think, oh no, it is in this pack. Okay. What I was looking for is this lantern, and it's very small, but you can see that there's a lantern here, and you can see he actually even creates some that are different arrangements, so that if you're going to put it in a corner, it doesn't look odd that you put it in a corner. So I'm just going to take this lantern, and I'm going to select it, and now I'm going to create the tile, and now you can see I've got this little lantern sitting here. Now, if I zoom in on it, its orientation is a little odd. So what I am going to do is I'm going to select it, and then I'm going to hold the shift key down and rotate my mouse wheel, and I'm going to turn it a little bit so that its orientation is the way I would want it. The way that I would want it to be up against the wall. So now I'm going to move it. And here's the interesting part. Again, if I want to be precise about where I put it, I'd hold the shift key down, and I can put it right in between these grid lines, as opposed to if I don't hold the shift key down, it'll snap to a corner. Right? There it goes. It snaps to a corner. But if I move it and then I hold the shift key down, I can then drop it exactly where I want it to be. All right. So now we've got our lantern on the wall. And we just said that we were describing to Gendon there that as he peers down the stairwell, you can see what appears to be the flickering of a lantern somewhere in the room below, but you can't really see any further than that. Okay, so now we have a lantern. So now let's talk about a light source. Now, since we have a wall, when I create this light source, and you notice when I drag it out, this right-hand side here will stop at the wall, right? That makes sense, because we don't want it to shine through the wall anyway, so that's perfect. So I'm just going to leave it about there. Now, again, it's not exactly on top of my lantern. So what I'm going to do is start to move it, and then I'm going to hold the shift and then drag it right on top of the lantern, and it doesn't matter that it goes through the wall. That's irrelevant. So now, I let the shift key down, or off too quickly. There we go. Let go and then let go of the shift key. Now you've got no light over there, and it's sitting right above it. So now I'll configure this by double clicking on it, and let's turn it into a lantern, shall we? We'll make it kind of a burnt orange color, and I don't want it to be too bright, because then the color will be a little bit too much. It'll make it too bright on the map. So I'll make it a little darker. That will, trust me, end up being what I want it to be. So now I'm going to turn the intensity up a little bit, just so the color is a little bit more present there. And I think I'm going to turn this brightness down to about 1.5. So it's basically only really bright right at the source itself. Then I'm going to go to this lighting animation. I'm going to select torch. And since torches usually flicker a bit more than a lantern would because there's not as much air hitting the light source. In a torch you're walking and the air's making the flames flop around, but in a lantern it's not quite that fast. So I'm going to turn this animation speed down to about 2, and I'm going to turn the animation intensity up a little bit, not too much. Now, reversing the direction doesn't really matter in this particular case of an animation. If you had it pulsating like an orb or something like that, that might make a difference. You do have some advanced options you can do here, but I'm not going to worry about them. They're fine. Now, I'm just going to update that light source, and now we have this cool lantern that's ever so slightly flickering. It's not flickering a lot, but it clearly is a burning source of light, right? All right, so now let's go back to our buddy Gendon and select him. And now he has not seen that lantern yet. That lantern is still hidden in the dark for him. And I'm also going to change him. Let me zoom in a little bit to make it easier for DC. I'm going to change him to where his vision is not a full 60 feet. I'm just going to make it, let's make it 10 feet. All right, so now he can see up to 10 feet around himself. All right, so now he walks over here, and you'll notice as he is able to see down into this room a little bit more, he can see there's a light source, but he can only see what the light source itself illuminates, right, until he gets into the room. And now these pillars, he can't see around them. Now the fog of war is beginning to happen where he's discovered things. So if he walks back out, clearly he's already seen this. So that's called the fog of war. You can walk around this pole here. There's this column, and now he's seen all the way around it. So now what I described to him was, you see a lantern flickering in the room, but you can't really see much more. So now he comes down, and then I tell him, oh, so on the west wall, you see an iron chest, and that iron chest looks like it's heavily fortified, as if it's very strong. Doesn't have a lock on it, but it looks like it's a very stronghold box. All right, well, he doesn't see that. He sees a wall. So let's change that, shall we? So now I'm going to come out here, and I'm going to create another item. And let's just make it, I got to select the item thingy here. And let's just make it that size. So now we got a 1 grid square item. Now, again, we can change this, so it's not a big deal. We can even scale it if we want to. So now I'm going to pick a chest, but I want a chest that is, no, it's not from this one. I want to be in furniture, or not furniture 3. I'm pretty sure. Yep, there we go. All right. So now we've got all these chests to go in, and I think it, see that they're so cool looking. I think which one was it? Was it, no, it's not that one. No, it's not that one either. All right, I'm going to get to it, I swear. It was a heavy duty one. And maybe it was a treasure. Well, okay, I'm not gonna, oh, there it is. It was the very first one. All right. So the cool thing about this token pack is that you've got, all these different orientations, and some open left to right, some open right to left. Well, we're going to put it on the west wall. So we want it to open right to left. We want the lock area. It doesn't have a padlock on it, but we want the lock area to be on the right, and it's vertical. So I'm just going to pick this one right here. So this is the item. Now, keep in mind, a chest as a tile is not something they can interact with. There is another way to put in items that they can interact with, and if you look at our other video, and I'll put a little card up here on it, about item piles module, the module item piles, you will find the coolest way for them to interact with this chest. It'll have sound. They can open it and close it. It can contain things that they can take, sometimes only, based on if there's 4 people in the party, they can only take their fair share, or you can let them take it all. I mean, just infinite, the number of combinations that you can do. And you can use all this cool artwork to make all that happen. So I'm not going to go through that here. See that video, and trust me, you're going to go, oh my God, this is so cool. So now we have this chest sitting over here. And so if we click on Gendon, now he actually sees a chest in the room. Not he's pretending to see. I love theater of the mind, trust me, but sometimes there's just too much going on in here. There's an infinite number of things you can do with tiles to put things down on the floor, like rubble or a pile of supplies or whatever, a desk, a bed. I mean, there's an infinite number of things you can do with that. So that just kind of gives you an idea of what you can do with items themselves. And combining items with light sources, you can combine them with sound. You can do all sorts of things there. So that's creating a scene, folks. That's how we do this. I'm not going to bore you by going through every single permutation of all the different things that you can do here, but you get the picture. Making your windows, making your solid walls, your doors. Obviously, this actually, by the way, if you look at that item piles video, you could turn this into a set of doors that open, as opposed to just being baked in here. Okay, just letting you know, it's so cool all the things you can do there. And there's our door that they can see now, and you can obviously click it and open it. So that's pretty much it, guys and gals. If you're here as well, that's how you create a scene. That's how you get your walls up. That's how you can add some spice to your map by adding some really cool visuals to it, lighting to it. Don't be afraid of that. And actually in your lighting, you're going to want to do some serious lighting when you come out here, unless you're expecting your travelers to be traveling in the dark. You're going to want to put lights all the way around so that they can see, or make it very dim so that they can see, but they still have to have a torch to walk around. There's all kinds of things that you're going to want to do to make this really cool for your players. Again, do us a favor, please. Hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, tell us what you think. Let us know if we missed something. Maybe you were screaming at your screen going, hey, but wait, but tell us, and I'll be happy to come in here and do it again. Really hope that you enjoyed this and found it useful. And again, as always, as you're adventuring, be careful, be safe, and be kind. Peace.